question you probably always get is, which is the better make? Canon, Nikon, Fuji,
Well,
Minolta?
I'd say the most reliable cameras are the ones that can take the most abuse, if you put it that way, are probably the Nikon cameras. They would use a lot of metal components inside, where other manufacturers would choose to use plastic. So, and my take on the situation is that the Nikon and the Sonys are probably the most reliable cameras at the moment that we see. Obviously, we get more Canon than Nikon for repairs, probably because there's more of them around and more being sold in the country. But it's also the kind of fault that happens in the camera. A lot of the Nikon stuff that we get for repairs normally through wear and tear or customer abuse, quite frankly, where they've dropped it or they've forced something or something. Whereas with the Canon camera, often a component can fail through no fault of your own, and then you just got to accept it and have it repaired. So I think the same thing applies probably to cell phones and laptops and that kind of thing. It's just a company strategy of how they've chosen to design and build the equipment. And Nikon are a little bit always behind with the latest, and they're not the first to bring out the best and the brightest stuff. They often wait a bit behind the scenes and let the other manufacturers sort of venture into unknown territory, and then they come along afterwards after having refined it to copy what they did and made it better, sort of thing. So yeah, in my opinion, Nikon is still the most reliable and the best made, but they're all catching up now. They really are. I mean, some of obviously the top Canon equipment's up there with the Nikon stuff as well, the Pro L lenses and the Pro bodies. Yeah.
Okay, and mirrorless versus the SLRs, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the mirrorless is the future, I think, especially for the camera manufacturers. They're going to push it because, obviously, to align the mirror with the viewfinder and the sensor and the lens, that all requires quite a high level of precision and a lot of labor when they build the camera. They've got to obviously set all that up at the factory, and so that it all works. And when we take it apart, we have to reset that all up. So it's quite an involved thing. Whereas with a mirrorless camera, there isn't any of that. There's just the sensor that you basically, like a TV screen essentially, that you just, an image is coming in from the lens onto that, and you're basically seeing it in the viewfinder if there is one, or the screen at the back here, like this, and you're basically seeing exactly what the lens is seeing directly. So there's no room for error, there's no focus faults, it's much easier for them to make it, a lot cheaper for them to make it than an SLR. So I think the future is going to be mirrorless for all the reasons. Obviously the benefits for the client is that it's smaller, lighter, the focus is often quicker, and it should be cheaper, but unfortunately they're maxing out what they can get for these cameras. I mean, the latest said it'd be cheaper than an SLR, but it's actually a bit more.
Okay, what makes the Leica cameras and lenses so special?
Well, the Leica digital camera is not necessarily special. They're electronically and as far as the result of the picture goes in the camera, it's pretty much on a par with all the others. Obviously, the build quality of the mechanical part of the camera is amazing. They use solid brass materials, and it's built to incredibly high tolerance, which takes a lot of labor, a lot of time, and that obviously is reflected in the price they have to charge for the cameras to pay all the people that build them. But the real secret is in the lenses. They've always been the world's leader in lens manufacture, and they've got the market sewn up there without doubt. I mean, all their lenses are optically amazing. They actually hold their 50mm Summicron lens, the Apo Summicron that they currently make, has still reached the highest technical levels when you're talking on what's called an MTF graph, which is the way they measure lenses technically. Theirs, of course, the highest in the world of any other lens. So that's probably where the secret is.
Okay, this is the last question. Camera and lens care. What should or shouldn't people be doing with their gear?
Well, they definitely try not to take it to the beach if you can. Even if you're trying to be careful on the beach, there's often sand airborne. You don't realize it, and it gets in your hair, obviously in your clothes, as you know, but it can get into the camera, and that's absolutely detrimental because these things have very fine tolerances between the moving parts. Like the gap between this and this is probably 2 or 3,000th of a millimeter, and 1 grain of sand in there is like putting a rock about that big in your engine of your car. So sand is bad. Obviously water, a lot of the cameras today are weatherproof, but they're not waterproof, so rain is always bad. It doesn't necessarily affect the mechanical part so much, but the electronics in these things, there's lots in lenses today and cameras, they don't react well to water. They can corrode, and also the water causes an electrical connection between things. So if something gets wet, obviously the electrical paths are all disturbed and the water just becomes a conductor and it can blow things and damage things. So water is very bad. Also try and keep your lens front element protected with a UV filter like this. So if you do scratch it or damage it, it's easier to replace that than the actual front of the lens. And then obviously try not to drop your cameras, be careful with them. There are still highly precise mechanical instruments, but like a microscope, so you don't want to be chucking it around a bit. You've also got to treat it with a bit of care, and then just keep it clean. I think, to be honest, the best advice I can give, most of our work is actually due to the cameras and lenses being dirty. It actually leads to all the problems. So if you're quite fastidious about keeping your stuff clean, it'll serve you well in the long run, I think.
How do you clean it with what?
Well, you brush it off with a paintbrush. Just go buy some cheap paintbrush like this and just brush the thing off once in a while. And then if you want to, you can take some lens cleaning fluid on some cotton wool and you just wipe the glass. I'll just demonstrate quickly. So if you take 2 pieces of cotton wool, a little bit of lens cleaning fluid on there, and not too much, and you just gently wipe it over the front like that to wet it. Again, not too wet because it'll run down the sides. And then you take a dry one and wipe it off again like that, and just keep going until all the liquid is evaporated off the front of the glass, and then you should have a nice clean lens element.